Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name's Simon Kaufman. I'm the Director of Advancement at Partners for Sacred Places. We're going to get started momentarily. We'll give people just another minute or so to join in. I'm keeping my eye on the attendees, and when the number stops growing, then we'll get started. Okay, I think we're good. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us. My name's Simon Kaufman. I am the Senior Director of Advancement at Partners for Sacred Places. I'm helping manage the technology today. And I'm so glad that you're here to join us in hearing from the winners of the 2026 Faith Informed International Religious Architecture and Art Awards. The Faith Informed Awards are sponsored by Partners for Sacred Places and the Interfaith Design, a knowledge community of the AIA. A few housekeeping items before we begin. We're reviewing 12 projects today. There will be a 5-minute break halfway through the presentation to give us all a chance to step away from our screens. If you have any questions for any of the winners or jurors or Partners for Sacred Places or Interfaith Design Knowledge Community, please enter them at any time into the Q&A, and we'll address them at the end. If your question is regarding a specific project or for a specific organization, please specify that in your question so we know how to answer it at the end. We are recording this, and we'll send a link to everyone who registered. We'll also post it on sacredplaces.org. Now I'd like to introduce Jacqueline Block from GFF Design, Chair of the Interfaith Design Knowledge Community.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome, everyone. The AIA Interfaith Design Knowledge Community encourages and supports excellence in the design of worship spaces and associated spaces. It's an association of professionals whose primary interest is in religious facilities and a broad array of traditions. We welcome volunteers, and we have lots of different forums and town halls to learn more. And I want to thank everyone that's listed here that's been part of the leadership group this past year.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Block, Director of Special Initiatives at Partners for Sacred Places. Partners for Sacred Places is a national, non-sectarian, nonprofit organization founded in 1989 to address a growing crisis, the deterioration and loss of historic sacred places, and the resulting harm to communities across America. As we all know, sacred places are local landmarks, and often they represent the finest art and architecture in any given community. When these buildings are lost, communities not only lose a place of worship, they lose a piece of their history, they lose a community space, and they lose vital programs that serve children and youth, seniors, the homeless and hungry, immigrants, ex-offenders, and all others in need. Partners research and programs supports congregations and other stewards of historic religious properties by connecting them to a network of supporters, including those in the design, building, and historic preservation professions, as well as community-serving nonprofits and others who have a stake in religious properties. Also, that congregations can raise new funds, maintain their buildings, and more fully realize their roles as centers of community. And you see on this slide one of our recent clients, La Mesa First United Methodist Church outside San Diego, where we all celebrated the in-person version of this award ceremony at St. Paul's Cathedral, in St. Paul's Episcopal Cathedral in San Diego. And I'm really delighted to see familiar faces and to welcome the international community into this virtual award ceremony. We are honored once again to support and recognize the winners of the Faith Inform Awards for religious architecture and art, whether designing new buildings, restoring, renovating, or adapting existing buildings, designing religious art or interior spaces, or organizing community-serving events that realize a religious property's role as a center of community in new ways. Today's award winners, or tonight's award winners, depending on where you're tuning in, like last year's award winners, which you see here on the slide, have all helped Sacred Places to realize their role as vibrant, resilient centers of community. They have physically reflected the beliefs and priorities of those who steward the building, both for the benefit of those who commission the winning projects as well as the wider community that will engage with these sacred spaces for generations to come.
I'd like to thank and acknowledge the 2026 Faith and Forum Awards jury, which consisted of Joshua Zender, Lisa J. DeBoer, Reverend Drew Henry, Erica Ruggiero, and Edward Torres. The jury was facilitated by Kevin Block and Simon Kaufman. If you have any questions for the jurors, please type them in the Q&A for the end of the presentation. Now I'd like to introduce the 2026 jury chair, Joshua Zender.
Hello, I have been honored to serve as a juror for the Faith and Form Awards for the last 2 years and to chair this year's jury. This year, we reviewed 75 submissions and engaged in thoughtful, wide-ranging discussions about place, faith, community, connection, and the role of design in shaping meaningful experiences. The projects presented are a remarkable cross-section of cultures, traditions, and spiritual expressions, from the smallest architectural interventions to transformative city-scale projects. The work demonstrated the power of design to inspire, heal, and connect. Together, these entries address many of the critical challenges and opportunities of our time through new construction, adaptive reuse, historic preservation, and thoughtful insertions that create transcendent spaces and strengthen our communities. On behalf of the jury, congratulations to all of this year's recipients for their outstanding contributions to the built environment and the communities they serve. We'll start with the honor awards for the category Religious Architecture Renovation. St. James Cathedral Portico, Seattle, Washington, Garrick Office, and this is an honor award. The portico transforms an existing secondary entrance into a primary entrance through design interventions that aid in wayfinding, accessibility, and conveying Catholic theology. The project references the Portico de la Gloria, the main entry gate to Santiago de Compostela Cathedral in Galicia, Spain. The light monitor reaches 30 feet above the floor of the vestibule. During the day, the monitor illuminates the vestibule with diffuse north light. At night, recessed light coves illuminate from within, creating a beacon of light, announcing the cathedral's presence as a spiritual guiding light for First Hill and the city at large. The entry doors feature projecting fins crafted from naval brass, arrayed in a pattern that references the scallop shell, an icon traditionally associated with St. James. In addition, the holy water stoop allows multiple visitors to bless themselves simultaneously in a collective spiritual gesture. The presence of holy water at the entry to the cathedral alludes to the sacrament of baptism. Above the stoop is an inscription from the Gospel of Luke about a journey in faith. The awards jury noted The new northeast portico for St. James Cathedral is an example of a small intervention that makes a profound impact on an existing religious structure. The design uses lighting in diverse and subtle ways, as well as the fine detailing of the new doors and the holy water stoop to transform what was once merely a building access point into a warm and inviting statement of liturgical welcome to the entire First Hill neighborhood in Seattle. Christopher Garrick from Garrick Office is here to speak about this project.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Garrick with Garrick Office. I'm one of the co-owners with Misan and Sean Garrick here. First off, just a huge thanks to Partners for Sacred Places and Interfaith Design for the opportunity to share our work today. We really appreciate it, and congratulations to all the other awardees. And a special thanks before I begin to the community at St. James Cathedral and Father Ryan for spearheading this project and helping to make it a reality. So I think Joshua did a fantastic introduction there, hit all the high points. I thought we would share a few other slides to convey some of the other design concepts, some of the context behind the design work. If you go to the next slide, please. Here's an early sketch that we did to share with Father Ryan, talking about some different themes that we might be able to bring to the project. The vestibule is fairly small, but we felt like the ideas could be much bigger in terms of what we can bring into this space through natural light, daylighting, new stronger entry doors, which aid in wayfinding, and then also the holy water stoop, which Joshua mentioned. Next. The context is actually pretty important for this project in terms of how you access the cathedral, because traditionally you go through the front entry doors, which are the ceremonial doors on the lower right off of 9th Avenue. But because this site is very steep, uphill site, the accessibility is a challenge for those doors. So the center of gravity for access to the cathedral really happened towards the northeast. And so that northeast entry was previously almost like a back door. This really didn't have as much prominence towards entering the cathedral, and everybody's driving to the site. Most of the visitors, parishioners are arriving, many folks from out of Seattle. So you can see here the traffic pattern, the pedestrian pattern is really focused towards the parking areas to the northeast. So that's what really made this entry really important for the cathedral moving forward. Next. Floor plan, just so you can see how the vestibule is situated. Overall, the cathedral is in a classic cruciform shape with the crossing at the altar, baptismal font towards the west side. So you do enter from the northeast corner, but there are some design themes here that allude to the overall organization and key aspects of the existing cathedral as well. Next. A little bit of theological context. St. James, the patron saint of the cathedral. Many of you are familiar with the Camino de Santiago, which is the way of the saint leading towards the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, the burial site and shrine of St. James. And a few aspects of St. James iconography-wise are the scallop shell. If anybody goes on a pilgrimage, oftentimes you'll see pilgrims carrying these scallop shells, and they're even used as wayfinding signs to help pilgrims find their way to the pilgrimage sites. Additionally, as a pilgrim, the walking staff, in this case the gourd, is often associated with St. James as this path, this journey that you're taking, a spiritual journey. Next. Here's an elevation showing the scale of the light monitor in the entry doors. The light monitor is calibrated to the existing proportions, the string course of masonry around the building, around the transept. We took care to avoid blocking any existing stained glass windows. The cathedral is a landmark structure in Seattle, so we had to make presentation, but it was unanimously approved by the city in terms as a sensitive intervention in the existing context. Next. There's a plan detail showing the light monitor above to give you a sense of scale. It's about 6 by 6. The holy water stoop is also 6 feet wide, so much larger than a typical one, but it does elevate that moment when you enter into the cathedral as a connection to to baptism and holy water. Next. A little bit before and after on the right, you can see the doors. We took care to retain that existing classical portal that you enter into the cathedral, but made the doors larger up to about 9 to 10 feet. And then you have the light monitor tucked in into that little alcove between the transept and the nave. Next. At night, the light monitor glows. So during the day, you have this duality of the daylight coming in and then night acting as a light beacon. We took care also in terms of the detailing of the light monitor, so the structural columns were custom WT shapes, also in the form of a cross. So the iconography of the cross, very important to Catholic faith, shows up both in the elevation of the mullions on the light monitor, but then also the detail of the structure. And that particular shape was also contributing to the lateral capacity of the light monitor. So we were able to avoid having solid walls and diagonal bracing, given how tall the structure was. So all those themes come together in both the iconography, the architectural, and structural design. Next. Also, one of the key aspects of historic preservation guidelines is reversibility. And so the design of the light monitor is situated on top of a tube steel frame that is anchored into some glulam beams along the perimeter. So in the future, if it ever needed to be removed, you could theoretically remove the light monitor. But this process allowed us to prefabricate the light monitor. We were not able to disrupt the daily use of the cathedral for a long period of time. So by prefabricating the monitor and with some of the glazing offsite, we were able to speed up the construction, and that was just done in one afternoon. Next. More nighttime views, which we shared earlier. Next. The character of the light monitor changes over the course of the day. Even when it's not lit, you get a reflected light off the naval brass, which is used to pull in more of a warm light during the day. And in the evening, all the concealed LEDs in the light cove above allow it to glow. So there's a sense of mystery and wonder where the light is coming from at all times. Next. The entry doors, the pattern of these brass fins on the entry doors allude to the scallop shell. In this view, you can see them radiating from above, and on the interior, they're radiating from below. To some people, it may evoke the scallop shells. To others, it may allude to rays of light from above. I know when Palm Sunday was celebrated there, some folks thought it looked like palm fronds. So there's a type of abstract symbolism to the way people bring their own reading into the design. The angled handlebars that handle the door handles allude to the walking staff crafted out of wood, also associated with St. James. Next. A view from the interior looking back towards the doors, the light monitor pulling in the light from above, the floating holy water stoup. The inscription on the wall is done by Robbie Schneider, a fantastic artist that we collaborated with from Scotland. Next. Here's an image of Father Ryan during the initial blessing of the inscription, the holy water. The image on the right shows a custom drain detail for the holy water stoup, which is also in the shape of a quatrefoil, which is also the shape of the floor plan of the cathedral and the baptismal pool. So there's a direct symbolic connection between the holy water stoup and then also the baptismal pool in the cathedral. Next. Next. A view from the interior looking back towards the doors, and you can see the scallop shell motif on the doors, even visible from deeper inside the cathedral, and actually St. James's statue above that too. Next. That's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. So from the Pacific Northwest, we're going to the Southwest here. Again, an honor award for the category Religious Architecture, Restoration. The Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, Mesa, Arizona Temple, a project completed by GSBS Architects. The Mesa Temple renovation honors the connection between people, place, and history. Built in 1923 by early pioneers of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the temple's neoclassical exterior became a sacred landmark for Mesa. Over time, remodels and additions adapted the building to new needs, sometimes straying from its original vernacular. This renovation restores the temple's historic character while preparing for the present and future. The design renews comfort, function, and beauty throughout the building and transforms the grounds into a welcoming, safe, and serene setting for visitors. Every decision was made with care, preserving original materials where possible and reinstating lost historic elements. And if we can advance to the next slide, that'd be great as well. While much of the terracotta endured, the main entrance and courtyards were redesigned using historic documents. Reconfigured layouts improved circulation, accessibility, and function while reestablishing original character. Upgraded systems enhance efficiency and resilience of the remarkable renovated Beaux-Arts landscape. Inside, artisans revived murals, plasterwork, stone finishes, and period lighting. The project reflects collaboration, craftsmanship, and stewardship, ensuring the Mesa Temple endures as a spiritual and architectural centerpiece for generations. According to the awards jury, this project embodies the meaning of a truly comprehensive restoration. The dedication of the owner and design team was fully apparent in their careful study of the site, its architecture, and the finishes and furnishings of the interior. As they restored lost and degraded features of the temple, they also sensitively upgraded mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and the seismic retrofit system. Additionally, the presentation of the project in the recipient's submission packet was exceptional. Stephanie DeMott and Travis Shepard from GSBS Architects are here to speak about this project. Congratulations.
Thanks, Kevin. You know, this project really was about reconnecting the people of Arizona with their rich history. The temple over time really had to evolve to accommodate more patrons. As you can see on the image on the left, that's the original temple entrance, which was small. It didn't accommodate very many people coming in. Over time, in the 70s, they added a new entrance using a revolving door and storefront, which really wasn't in keeping with the original style and aesthetic of the temple. The original neoclassical style was lost over time in many aspects of the temple. Let's go to the next slide. So what our team did was accommodated the new requirements of the patrons, but also went back to that original style and designed in that original aesthetic. Every time that we made a design decision, it was based and started with preservation. The original materials defining architectural features were retained whenever we could. And then we researched historic photographs and archival drawings, which really guided the reconstruction of the elements that had to be altered or that had been altered or lost. A big part of this project was the exterior, the original terracotta. We preserved as much as possible of that terracotta, where we carefully repaired, cleaned, and repointed rather than replaced. And then we reached out to the original terracotta fabricator, who's still in business. They had many of the original molds and glazing formulas, and we reused those to recreate for new uses some of the original terracotta. Another important aspect of the project was sustainability. All of the exterior windows were replaced with steel windows, matching the original steel windows, but the new windows were thermally broken and had high performance glazing. But all of the original profiles were maintained. And all of the original openings proportions were restored. Many new openings had been created where there were courtyards, and we brought that original proportion to the windows back to the temple. And next slide. So as you can see on the left, that's the original door. We studied the original drawings and brought back that original portico, but made it much larger. We used original materials, proportions. Everything you see in the right-hand image is all new construction. A lot of the things that were lost in the remodels were proportion. Everything that we did, we had studied and meticulously documented the proportions of openings, materials, details, and reconstructed the new with those proportions. Next slide. The site was also part of the restoration. The original site was in the Beaux-Arts style, very rectilinear, with intimate courtyards, exterior spaces that were contemplative. You could move around the temple at any time. And then beyond that was an orange grove that during the Depression, anyone from Arizona could come and pick oranges if they needed it. Later in the lower right-hand corner, that's how the site looked before, where the orangery was lost. Much of the original geometry was lost. And in the final design, we restored the pathways, gardens, reflecting pools, the formal axes to strengthen the connection between the building and its surroundings. We restored a lot of the fruit trees on the site that can also be picked by anyone today. A big part of the project, like I mentioned before, was sustainability. We created an underground cistern that captures local Salt River water for irrigation, which supported the restored landscape while promoting responsible water stewardship in a desert. The structural seismic upgrades increased the temple's resilience, and new mechanical, electrical, and water systems improved the efficiency and reliability. On the interior of the temple, all of the lighting was replaced and upgraded throughout on the interior and exterior with high efficient lighting sources. Ultimately, the project demonstrates, that preservation and innovation are not competing goals. By carefully combining historical research with modern engineering and sustainable design, this renovation really honors the temple's past while ensuring it remains a resilient, beautiful, and steady and ready to serve for future generations. And then moving to the inside, that same level of care continued inside the building, which Stephanie will talk about.
So similar to the exterior, the interior restoration began by identifying the temple's original character-defining features and understanding what made those spaces unique. From there, we looked for opportunities to restore those features that had been lost, and importantly, to be able to also carry the same architectural language into the 1970s edition, which had originally been designed without many of those historic details. The goal was to create a cohesive experience throughout the temple while reorganizing the addition to improve circulation, functionality, and the experience for the patrons. You can see from this slide, this is called the Grand Foyer, and it was a great example of this approach. It was originally one of the temple's larger gathering and waiting spaces, but over the years, many of its original details had been altered or lost. The picture on the left is one of the original photos of the space, and then on the right was during prior to the renovation. If you go to the next slide, our team had been maintaining the temple for years, many years, and we had already begun searching, knowing that this renovation was coming for some of the materials. In this image, you can see the checkerboard floor and the stone wainscot that's a little bit behind those chairs. This stone was very difficult to find. And so we had searched globally for several years trying to find a match to this stone. Just when we thought we had exhausted all of our resources, we remembered the Utah State Capitol had been recently renovated, and we thought that we had seen the similar stone in that renovation. So we started doing research and reached out to our stone contacts there and started following leads to see if we could determine where that stone came from. That research eventually led us to the original quarry in the small mountain town in Thistle, Utah. The quarry had been buried by a landslide, but we were able to locate the owner of the mountain and get permission to search for remnants of that original stone. So yes, part of the restoration process involved driving ATVs to the top of a mountain and searching for historic stone blocks, which we found. We were able to take those remnants of the original quarry stone, hauled them back down the mountain, and had them fabricated into new stone panels. Those panels were then installed where the original wainscot had been removed, and also included elements on the floor as well. We go to the next slide. Another remarkable story is the baptismal font. This is one of the most elaborate baptismal fonts within the church, and fortunately for us, portions of the original font had been maintained. The original terracotta tile included three beautiful three-dimensional floral, grape, and elongated leaf tiles, along with some intricate mosaic patterns and distinctive finishes that had been lost over time. We were fortunate to find some of the original mosaic tiles buried beneath layers of concrete and a stainless steel liner. Those pieces became our physical reference for recreating what had been lost. We found a specialty manufacturer who could reproduce the tiles, and through multiple rounds of samples and site visits, we matched the original tiles, and importantly, none of the original terracotta tile was ever removed. We also replicated custom handrails and returned the stair to its original shape. You can see in the lower left, prior to the renovation, that shape, if you can compare to the upper left, you can see how the stair was pretty drastically changed. And then on the right, where we left back, we brought it back to the original sense and style of the space. And next slide. The final piece was bringing everything together through furniture, fabrics, lighting, and carpeting. Because many of the original elements had been lost, nearly everything was custom designed in the 1920s colonial revival style. The furniture included custom wood carvings and veneers and marquetry, with every detail carefully considered to complement the architecture. At the same time, everything had to withstand heavy commercial use, so we were constantly balancing historical character with modern durability. We also replicated details from the few remaining historic light fixtures and developed additional period appropriate lighting throughout the temple. So next. Ultimately, the goal was bigger than the building itself. We wanted to create a place where people could step away from the world and find peace and worship God. And the result is a temple that honors its history while creating a sense of retreat and reverence for the church members who visit today. So we're very grateful to have had the opportunity to be part of this once-in-a-lifetime project. And we want to thank Partners for Sacred Places for this great honor.
Wonderful, really wonderful. I just wanted to point out as a juror's note, that project and this next project are great examples of how to put together design submissions for competitions, especially for restoration projects. They were well edited, beautifully illustrated presentations that told compelling stories and really made it easy for the jurors to provide them with awards. Okay, next project in this category of restoration, San Esteban Parish Church in Arguedas, Navarra, Spain. Cheres and Quintana Arquitectos. It's an honor award. Since its construction, St. Esteban Parish Church has undergone continuous deterioration, affecting the entire building. Over centuries, various additions were introduced in an attempt to contain the damage. However, these interventions gradually compromised the clarity and beauty of the original interior. The most significant alteration was the closure of the south facade with a brick wall, which eliminated the original entrance and the community gathering space. Despite these measures, cracks continued to spread through the vault keystones, ribs, and plaster corbels, eventually leading to the repeated collapse of portions of the vault. The restoration process unveiled to the architects how the failure root causes were never properly addressed. Starting with the underground studies, the architects provided diagnostics and a restoration strategy that defined long-term observation of the building over a 10-year period, including the monitoring of movements, crack geometry, and their evolution, made it possible to identify the underlying causes of the damage. A targeted sequence of interventions addressed the foundations, walls, and rib vaults. The removal of unnecessary additions also restored the original natural light to the interior and recovered the south entrance and its square. The jury observed, the entirety of this project was impressive, from the in-depth structural research that grounded the restoration plan to the integration of advanced engineering with traditional construction. Above all, what strikes us as the most beautiful is how restoring the original south portal also restored the relationship of the parish church to its plaza, spatially reestablishing an inspiring connection between ecclesiastical and civic forms of community. Xavier Cherez from Cherez and Quintana Arquitectos is here to speak about the project.
Thank you, Joshua. Good morning, good afternoon, evening to everyone from Spain. Thank you all very much, and thank you especially to Partners for Sacred Spaces, Faith and Forum, and all the participants over this and people attending this moment. What we have been introduced to through Joshua is the end of 12 years of work, which has been quite an adventure. Most of us, I guess, we are all architects. We understand what this means to be attached to one community, one client, one building, one site for 12 years. You become part of the place. And that's the first thing I would like to talk about in order to understand what happened in this place, in this building. Spain is a wonderful place, by the way, a place everyone should visit, by the way. And we are in a very peculiar place where this church is situated, which is one of the biggest valleys in Spain that brings its water to the west coast of the Mediterranean Sea. This area in particular has gone through thousands of years changes in its underground. And that's the reason why this building was collapsing. There was no way to keep it together, just working on the building. It was more than 4 years of following the movement of cracks, slowly, patiently, and we were able, with underground studies, to put together an idea of how to attempt to keep this building together. We arrived at a critical point because the vaults were already collapsing. As the result, of the transmission of horizontal forces to its rib, to these rib vaults, something that this kind of a structure cannot resist. The movement of the tower towards the southwest seemed to be unstoppable. And so that's why we started with working on the foundations with micropiloting. I think that's the English word. Excuse me, please, if it's not the right word. We used more than 100 micropillars, but we were able to contain the movement inserting this new structure that went 25 meters below ground, only through half of the perimeter of the church. It was enough, and then we stopped. We were sure that the building was not moving anymore, and with great joy, we were able to change the subject and address the restoration of the church with another attitude. The urgency, the fear of collapsing over the village was stopped. We have to say that this building is around 400 years old, a little bit more. And so when that happens, as it has been previously said before me speaking, these buildings become a landmark. They mark the personality of the whole village, of the whole valley. And so it is quite an experience, and we are, because of this, very thankful to have been invited to participate in this restoration. Without Father Carlos Ayerra's decision and help in order to make the diocese understand the necessity of recovering this building, nothing would have happened, and probably this building wouldn't be there anymore. As I said before, after we were able to address the structural problems of the building, we were able to continue with what is beautiful and visible, which is the restoration of the materials, the restoration of the shape of the ribs, the vaults, the walls. And we have to say also that we were surprised because it was not in the original project to provide a new urban space, a new plaza, due to lack of budget. But as the beauty of the church was being recovered, the enthusiasm around this event, because it became an event, this project, we were able to create this new urban space, which is the welcoming south new entry to this building, which is offered to the whole village, to the whole community, as a gathering place, as an entry place. That's the welcome and the most beautiful for us picture of all the sets that we sent to you. We waited for this picture for the last hour of the day because we wanted the image to be focused on the entrance with the tabernacle at the end of it. And I think I cannot add much more without going further than the time that I have been given. And I really hope it's enough to understand what we have now in Arguedas. Arguedas, Navarra, Spain. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, Javier. We're now moving from Spain to Osaka, Japan, in the category of sacred landscape. Ganin Gomadu, Tonoshiku, Osaka, Japan. The award recipient is UA Architects. This is another honor award. In the heart of Osaka, Ganin Gomado creates a sanctuary of prayer and silence through the raw presence of stone. Within the density and speed of the city, Large natural stones, split by geological forces rather than human hands, stand upright, forming a sacred landscape that invites stillness. Designed for the Shingon Buddhist Goma fire ritual, the space brings nature into the urban fabric. Beneath a concrete structure, uncut stones rise as independent forms, neither walls nor monuments, but quiet presences. Their weight and irregular rhythm gently calm the body and mind, offering moments of balance to busy city dwellers. Fire burns at the center as meditation rather than spectacle. Chanting, ritual instruments, and silence resonate against the stone surfaces, creating a soundscape that moves between intensity and calm. The stone paving and gravel underfoot trace Osaka's ancient shoreline, recalling when sea and land once met here. This gesture connects visitors to deeper geological memory, reminding them that the present city exists within a far longer timeline. Gannon Gamado is not an object to observe, but a place to enter, where nature, ritual, and urban life quietly coexist. The awards jury noted, quote, in an overlooked and unprogrammed space beneath rows of mid-century pilotis, the applicants created a sacred Buddhist oasis in the midst of Osaka that nevertheless remains open to the noises, smells, and bustle of life swirling around it. The use of stone for the altar, light stand, dedication wall, and partitions, and the material references to fire and water is particularly resonant. Mr. Shoji Oshio from UA Architects is here to speak about this project, so we'll welcome him. Congratulations.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty with this slide for some reason. Just one moment.
Well, like a good host, I can fill some time here. I just want to say it's remarkable the international extent of these awards. I'm sure everyone's recognizing that as well. When we get to the Gannon Gamano project, we'll see again. It's just amazing the pluralism of the religious landscape, and you're all part of this amazing community of people working on these projects. I hope you're following each other and keeping tabs and following up, because I'm sure there's so much to learn about these projects. And I just want to thank you again for being here and supporting the Faith Inform Awards.
Thank you, Kevin, and I'm sorry about that. My computer got a little tired, but we restarted, and we should all be able to see this project now. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this Faith Inform 1 Award. My name is Shoji Oshio of UA Architect in Tokyo. Gannon Gamado is a Buddhist prayer hall in Osaka designed for Goma ritual. Wait a second. This is another slide date. Yes, let's wait. Now, Osaka is one of Japan's largest and most densely built cities. Here, a place of prayer appears directly within the ordinary movement of pedestrians, bicycles, and daily urban life. Next slide, please. The prayer hall does not withdraw behind a wall. It remains visually and physically connected to the street, allowing the temple to embrace everyday life rather than separate itself from it. Next slide, please. As we close the threshold, the root bends and the space of and the pace of the body changes. The rhythm of the city gradually slows, and ordinary movement becomes an approach toward prayer. Next slide, please. The rough stones are not treated as decorative objects or conventional walls. Their irregular surfaces and weight are encountered as physical presences, recalling the exposed earth of Osaka's Uemachi Plateau. Next slide, please. The gaps between the stones guide movement without fixing it. They create moments to pause, turn, and glimpse the city again. So the body discovers its own path through the space. Next slide, please. At the deepest point, the altar, the Goma fire appear. Fire, sound, and chanting activate the stone landscape. Architecture finds its meaning through the ritual. Next slide, please. The space is not complete as an empty composition. It becomes a true place of prayer. Only when people gather, sit together, and participate in the ritual. Next slide, please. After the ritual, the fire disappears and the people leave. The stones remained quietly in place, holding the memory of prayer, while the life of the city continues around them. Next slide, please. Prayer does not end inside the hall. Passing once more between the stones, people return to the street, carrying the experience back into everyday life. Thank you very much.
And now for the awards. For the category of liturgical interior design, Immaculate Conception Chapel at St. Charles Borromeo Seminary, Ambler, Pennsylvania, by Voith McTavish Architects. The Immaculate Conception Chapel is the spiritual center of St. Charles Borromeo Seminary's relocated campus, seating 220. The new chapel maintains a 155-year tradition while supporting the seminary's future. It is a living place of formation where memory, devotion, and faith connect generations by giving salvaged sacred furnishings renewed life in a space alive with light, sound, and texture. The chapel's character is shaped by architecture and furnishings that support both heritage and daily liturgical life. Tiered antiphonal seating allows seminarians to chant the daily divine office in facing choirs, while forward-facing pews in the back of the nave accommodate larger liturgies. Light filters through the dozen stained glass windows brought from the former campus. Carved pews, stations of the cross, statues, and stained glass windows were carefully salvaged, restored, and relocated from 2 chapels at the old campus. The jury commented, "The way this new interior successfully incorporates consecrated objects from the previous campus is impressive. The chapel respects the heritage and tradition and traditional liturgy of the seminary while also seeming bright, fresh, and forward-looking. The chapel nave and tabernacle are stunning." Unfortunately, a representative from Voight McTavish was not able to attend with us today.
Moving on, for the category Religious Architecture New Facilities. The Chapel of St. Ignatius and the Galen, Tom, and Benson Jesuit Center in New Orleans, Louisiana, an award-winning project by Trahan Architects. And you're going to hear from Robbie in a second after a brief description. So the Chapel of St. Ignatius and the Galen, Tom, Benson Jesuit Center, located on Loyola University, New Orleans Historic Quad, provides a place for spiritual contemplation and an inspiring space for campus gatherings. Designed by Trahan Architects, the building's simple cylindrical form composed of textured, handmade brick harmonizes with the surrounding Tudor Gothic architecture while maintaining its own distinctive contemporary character. The chapel's solid exterior evokes a permanence and stability that reflects the surrounding campus. Both inside and out, the building's curved spaces foster communal intimacy. The layout of the interior references the traditional axial plans of Gothic cathedrals while cross-weaving interfaith programs within the dedicated Catholic spaces, elevating the university's value of diversity. According to the jury, quote, "The circular design makes a bold, contrasting statement in the context of the surrounding campus architecture, but it works. The fractal plan and the precise intersections of ceiling and wall planes was impressive. The interior is minimal in terms of decoration, but it still feels intimate and communal." Robbie Eliezer from Trahan Architects is here to speak more about this project. Congratulations.
Thank you. First, I just want to take a minute to thank our incredible team. Projects like these aren't possible without a whole army of people. So Spackman Mossett Michaels for the landscape architecture, Morphy Makovsky for structural and civil engineering, Introba for MEP, Threshold Acoustics for acoustics and AV, our cost estimators Cost Plus, lighting designers Tillotson Design, and our incredible liturgical advisor Marquita Mock. In addition to that, the built facility, we collaborated with a host of artists and artisans as we designed all the liturgical furnishings in the project. So artists from Ireland, Joseph Walsh for the altar, sculptor Bruno Walpath for the statuary, Studio Goons out of Paris for the furniture and liturgical millwork, Caro Prados Burks for the ceramic work, E. Kramer for the black and brass entry cross, and Jerry Nance for the black and brass liturgical furnishings, and Malcolm Kriegel for the blown glass. Just thank you to all my incredible team that worked on this project with us. Next slide. So this project was really about creating a new kind of facility that would really meet the students of Loyola University New Orleans on their faith journey and kind of allow the university to live into their value of diversity. Next slide. To accomplish this, we acknowledged a few things about the project, what it would need to do and what it did not have to do. In the bottom left of the campus plan, you'll see this is a stone's throw away from Holy Name, the parish church that is in this neighborhood. And so this is decidedly not the parish church, it's a student chapel. And so it gave us certain freedoms and liberties in the design that we took advantage of. So the simplicity of the partie, which you can see invites people in both from the campus quad, the historic historic quad at the center left to right, but also from the palm court. And you can see how the interior geometries nest together and kind of receive the campus into the plan. And this is an acknowledgement that the quad was incomplete for years, and students began to move through this green space to get to classes as if a building wasn't there. And so when we inserted the new chapel, we wanted to maintain that kind of spirit and not make the chapel a dominant force on the quad, but complete that part of the campus while still allowing for the free movement on all sides. Next slide. As mentioned, the brickwork really became the signature for the exterior design of the project. You'll notice a few techniques used in this image here. There's corbelling that we designed at each entryway. This allows for beautiful slits to penetrate that cylindrical form. But there are also kind of horizontal cuts in the facade itself as well that allows for borrowed glances into the chapel within. And in this image, you'll see that every brick is coursing into a full course at every corner, which is in dialogue with how every corner of brick architecture for the Tudor buildings expresses themselves. So that kind of tactility of the material in a very contemporary expression is still in dialogue with the historic context. Next slide. And the concept for the project arose by kind of looking back at the namesake of the chapel, St. Ignatius, who is the creator of the Jesuit philosophical tradition. And for those that don't know about St. Ignatius' past, he was injured in battle and recovered in Manresa in a cave. And during his recovery is when he received, his divine inspiration for the spiritual exercises that would become the foundation of the Ignatian tradition. And so we were conceiving of this project in the middle of the COVID-19 lockdown. Everyone was working from home. And so we were really resonating with St. Ignatius in a cave and thinking about the future emergence from the cave and what we might do. So we did a few experiments of physical model making and came up with this incredible technique of nesting volumes within containers that led to the model on the right, which you can see this beautiful kissing between two volumes, creating that signature Vesica Piscis symbol and plan. And we really latched onto that to generate the concept for the project. Next slide. And so in the architectural floor plan here, you can see the kind of signature cruciform plan hinging on the altar at the center with side chapels to the north and south and narthex vestibule east and west with the sanctuary in the center. But floating around that kind of cruciform plan are a series of communal spaces that are not dedicated just to the chapel use, but for the interfaith program. And so in this way, we're balancing that programmatic use. All the furnishings in the sanctuary are loose, and we accomplish that by working very closely with Joseph Walsh on the sculpting of the altar. It can actually move between two preset locations embedded in the floor, which allows us to unlock antiphonal layouts or traditional end stage layouts in the sanctuary itself. Next slide. And this image, you can see in the distance the altar carved by Joseph Walsh and the way that it kind of almost impossibly floats on a singular point. We were really thinking about what this church wanted to communicate to the students, and the idea of formation was a big theme in our liturgical design, that students would encounter these objects, in a point of transition in both their life and faith. And so all of the objects are seeking to capture moments that are within the liturgical tradition, but interpreted in a way that was meeting students along that journey. So for the altar, reinterpreting the burnt offerings to the Lord as smoke rising to the heavens. And so capturing the smoke rising in a moment for the altar. The corpus of Christ on the altar, he's neither Christ invictus, Christ in victory fully alive, nor Christ defeated dead. And so we capture the moment of Christ kind of in between those states of living and death on the cross, that moment of transition. Ignatius, you can see kind of almost coming out of that window cut in the right. He's got a crutch, which you can't see in this image, and he's got his finger in the page of the Bible. And so we're signifying to the students that, he's injured from war and he's contemplating his exercises, but he's on the mend. He's taking those first steps of the spiritual exercises. And so that theme of formation is throughout the liturgical design and really shapes the architecture. Next slide. And then here you can see that same window from the sanctuary is reoriented on the back of the chapel. Again, you can see the language of the the corbelled slits versus the horizontal slices to create a very simple and approachable exterior where you really circumnavigate the building on the quad as more of a green space. Here you're seeing the bioretention beds that receive all the stormwater from the roof and manage it just through natural plantings. And you can see the dialogue the building has with the historic buildings in the distance is both distinctly contemporary, but it's seeking to have a respectful dialogue with the past. Next slide. This is the first mass timber building in the state of Louisiana. One of the core values of the project, in addition to the University of Biodiversity, was sustainability. And so we did that through certain innovative construction means. So 32-foot tall, 10-foot wide planks of CLT, tessellate to create the drum of the chapel. And this is what hosts the cladding. It allowed us to remove polyocarbonate insulation and use the mass of the wood itself for the insulation. So a highly sustainable envelope. Next slide. And just to kind of end, here the main entry, you can see the hand-formed black and brass cross. Everything on the project had to do multiple things. So in addition to creating a generous and welcoming and kind of iconic entry, the brass cross is also the brise-soleil for the west-facing glass, allowing us to use an ultra-clear glazing to create that visual connection to the quad, but by reducing the building heating loads. And as you come into the lobby or the narthex, you see the ceiling and the walls are scalloping and transitioning, creating that compressive moment as you enter the sanctuary itself. So you can see how those curved walls and plan begin to work in section. Thank you very much.
Hey, Robbie, thank you so much. So we're going to take a 5-minute break now. So you can get up, get stretched, do what you have to do, and we will gather back together at 15 after the hour. Thank you. Okay, everyone, it's 15 past the hour. I hope everybody was able to stretch their legs and get up for a little bit and make it back. So we're going to get started again so we can hear about the second half of the projects and also get to your questions. So I'll hand it over to Josh to announce the next project.
Great. I guess next slide. For the category of religious architecture renovation, we have 4 award winners today. The first up is Kol Rinah Synagogue in St. Louis, Missouri, by Pattern Ives. Kol Rinah unites 2 established Jewish congregations on a single campus in St. Louis, transforming a former Baptist church to create a distinct identity for this newly formed synagogue. Located on the edge of a growing business district, the design honors the rich history of both congregations while projecting a sense of optimism, carefully integrating a new sanctuary and entry sequence with the existing mid-century structures. The new sanctuary is intentionally quiet, grounded, and responsive to its urban context. Through austere and protective in form, the sanctuary remains warm and inviting. The new entry and lobby spaces are filled with natural light throughout the day and softly illuminated at night. This luminous threshold supports the social and spiritual engagement central to Jewish faith, reinforcing the synagogue's role as both a sacred and communal space. The jury noted, this is a project about the possibilities and promise of finding common ground, both through the merger of 2 Jewish congregations as well as the integration of a pre-existing church structure with the new addition. The easiest option for the renovation might have been to demolish the former Hanley Road Baptist Church, but instead the synagogue celebrated the church's legacy by incorporating it into a new social hall. The site, planning, and exterior of the addition also addressed the congregation's safety concerns without compromising on the quality of light in the sanctuary interior. Anna Ives from Pattern Ives is here to speak about the project.
Hi, thank you, everyone. I'm Anna Ives. I'm the managing partner of Pattern Ives, and First, just a thank you to our client and our design team, the Faith Informed Jury, Partners for Sacred Places, and the AIA for this incredible honor. It's really a privilege to sit here among such an inspiring group and to have the opportunity to share a project that really reflects so much of what we strive for as a practice dedicated to arts, education, and community. This project arrived with 1,000 stories, which sounds like it's good company with many on this call today, where the construction is really interwoven with legacy, community, and the optimism of gathering. The Kol Runa project combines adaptive reuse with new construction to support a recently unified Jewish congregation. It brought together two longstanding faith communities, St. Louis-based, on a newly acquired property that once served as a Baptist church. And one of the most remarkable parts of this project is really how the property came to be acquired in the first place. Two religious institutions, the Baptist Church and one of the Jewish congregations, exchanged locations just a mile apart, each seeking a better fit for the needs of its congregation. And what makes the story even more meaningful is that their relationship continued long after the agreement was signed. And during construction, the church and the synagogue communities worshiped and carried out their ministries side by side at one of the previous campuses. Next slide. The work of building consensus among the large and deeply invested stakeholder community was really one of the most important aspects of what we did on this project. Early in the process, we explored the possibility of adapting the existing church sanctuary for worship. However, it was quickly clear that the congregation's vision would be better served by a new sanctuary addition. The new space could fully express Kol Runa's identity while embracing abundant natural light and creating the intimate atmosphere that's so important for worship, prayer, and singing together as a community. Next slide. The placement of the new addition reoriented arrival at the site, creating a clear and welcoming front door for the entire campus. To the west, the landscape was carefully shaped to provide a gently sloping garden path that offers universal access without the need for any handrails. The resultant space between the new addition and existing church sanctuary became a third gathering space, an outdoor courtyard that engages the activity of both the city and the synagogue. Next slide. There were many heritage items to relocate, including the first installation of three-dimensional stained glass, which you see here in this image on the right, which we incorporated within a new blackened steel arc, as well as 10 18-foot tall paintings by the modernist painter Edward Boscia, and thousands of memorial plaques and other pieces of artwork that we carefully incorporated into the support spaces of the existing buildings. So the new sanctuary was free of constraints other than to impart a sense of a new identity for the congregation. Next slide. The new addition also helped to solve one of the primary challenges of the structure, which is accessibility. By connecting the school building at an intermediate level and incorporating a new elevator, the lobby provides universal access to the ground plane. Next slide. The school building itself presented some unique challenges. Its original construction was relatively modest with thin floor slabs and interior walls of 4-inch concrete block, which offered limited flexibility for alterations. So rather than forcing extensive changes, we embraced the idea of using the building's original purpose as classrooms and offices and preserving as much of the existing structure as possible. Next slide. The stone form of the addition is intentionally quiet, seeking beauty and expression through restraint and conveying both permanence and a sense of civic presence. Because St. Louis has such a rich masonry tradition, and because the region's dense gray limestone is so deeply tied to its architectural character, a limestone envelope felt like a natural choice and grounds the building in its place and context. Next slide. Once inside, the sanctuary is an unexpected double height volume for fellowship, worship, and prayer. This sacred space is lined with white oak, bathed in diffuse light pouring in from a northern clerestory window high above the sanctuary floor. Ambient illumination from above is in dialogue with a sharper, direct light from the west entering through a thin vertical cleft in the south facade. This warmer light illuminates the east-facing arc wall from a concealed source, harnessing the symbolic and transcendent dimension of natural light while providing a dramatic backdrop for the bema at evening services. What you can't gain from the photos is the quality of the acoustics, which are carefully incorporated into the mass of the stone and CMU exterior envelope, and the finished materials themselves with thickened absorptive material hidden behind the oak lining, felted swaths of ceiling, and the gentle shaping of the room. The result is a tangible intimacy upon entering the monumental oak doors. Next slide. Throughout the project, the congregation remained committed to a phased approach, never losing sight of its highest aspirations for the campus. Even in the face of significant budget pressures, the limestone exterior remained a protected priority. It was seen not as a luxury, but as an essential expression of permanence and identity. The building itself is still young, but it already feels connected to a much older legacy. The limestone, with its fossils and veining and subtle variations, reveals traces of its creation, giving the building a sense of depth and endurance. In many ways, it reflects Coleraina's vision for its new home, a place built to honor the past, serve the present, and endure for generations to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Well said. We're going to move on now. Next, for the category Religious Architecture Renovation. Partners for Sacred Places has an office in Philadelphia. We also have an office in Chicago, so we know this site really well. It's a landmark building. This is the North Shore Congregation Israel, Frank Memorial Hall and Rebecca K. Crown Social Hall, Glencoe, Illinois, right on the lake. This is a project, an award-winning project by Eckenhoff Saunders. And Juan, after a brief description, I'll hand it over to you. Designed by modernist master Minoru Yamasaki in 1964 with the renowned postmodern addition by Hammond, Beebe, and Babka, North Shore Congregation Israel is an architectural landmark situated on a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan. Frank Memorial Hall and Rebecca K. Crown Social Hall, the synagogue's primary social gathering spaces, each tied to different architectural styles and to distinct moments in the synagogue's history, no longer reflected or supported the vitality of congregational life. Drawing inspiration from the original sanctuary's botanical forms and gilded arc, Frank Hall was redesigned to extend the sanctuary's spiritual character into this previously neutral, pre-function space. Crown Hall's design retains the dominant symmetrical geometry of the original, but replaces original worn finishes with bright, durable, and acoustically sensitive ones. In lieu of a traditional ballroom ceiling, an expansive dropped plane with a twinkling starscape of lighting embraces views of the terrace, bluff, and lake. The project reestablishes these spaces as vital venues, rooted in the synagogue's history, yet responsive to present needs, transforming both into dynamic, flexible, and inspiring environments that celebrate their architectural heritage while supporting future generations. The Faith Inform Awards jury shared, quote, the renovation of the Frank Memorial Hall and Rebecca K. Crown Social Hall thoughtfully honors the architectural legacy of Minoru Yamasaki's modernist sanctuary, revitalizes the interior spaces to meet the congregation's needs for worship and celebration, and ensures that the synagogue on the edge of Lake Michigan endures as a cherished place of community. So Juan Devia from Eckenhoff Saunders, take it away. Congratulations.
Thanks, Kevin. My name is Juan Devia. I'm an interior designer and project architect here at Eckenhoff Saunders. We're a Chicago-based architecture and interior design firm. Next slide, please. To give a little bit of context, the building is located on the North Shore of Chicago, particularly to an area called Glencoe, Illinois. Like you mentioned, it's located on a bluff overlooking the lake. Next slide, please. This is roughly 25 miles from downtown Chicago. The building or the campus itself is about a 19-acre lakefront property. Next slide, please. Previous slide. The main building was designed by Minoru Yamasaki, like you mentioned, in 1964. The building then had an addition by Hammond, Beebe, and Babka, currently known as HBRA, in 1981, which is highlighted on the right side of the page. And our intervention was mostly done in the spaces highlighted in yellow, which contemplate Frank Hall, Crown Hall, the administration suite, and a few entrances that were brought up to date with integrated security systems. Next slide. Here you can see a visual of the building itself designed by Minoru. You can see how the main synagogue sits right in front of the lake, and then it's connected with a bunch of supporting additional buildings. Lots of transparency, lots of connection to the exterior, and celebrates a lot of that modernist architecture. Next slide, please. Some of Minoru's work, his latest work, are the World Trade Center, the Rainer Tower in Seattle, and the IBM building in Seattle. Lots of concrete work that is mostly one of his signature, I would say, styles, and also with the modernist movement as well. Next slide. The building is known commonly here in Chicago as the Sanctuary of Light. Yamasaki intended for this structure itself to create that spiritual experience just by the building itself. Next slide. His design encompasses repeated reinforced concrete fan vaults. This is a reinterpretation, basically, of the monumentality of Gothic architecture, but done in a modernist way, in a modern way. He used concrete, pretty purely concrete itself is a very limited interior palette. If you go to the next slide, we can see how there's clear glazing at the lower level that connects the sanctuary to the landscape and the lake itself, while there's accents of amber translucent glazing that fill the interior, bringing in warmth and the idea of a sort of a golden light. Next slide. Here we can see how Frank Hall, which is the pre-function space to the sanctuary, connects directly to it. There's a very interesting play in scale, obviously highlighting the importance of both of the spaces. Next slide. In the interior, from being a modernist building, the shells, basically shell shape of the arches that he used almost touch at the top, and they separate as they descend. The spaces between them become narrow vertical bands of amber glazing, like we mentioned earlier. That's sort of the accent element that was brought in as part of this sort of white box element in a way. Natural light feels through the sky or through the skylights, and as you can see, the connection to the exterior is very eye level at the ground plane. Next slide. The synagogue itself accommodates about 800 people on the main floor and about 50 seats in the balcony. Here you can see how at the end of it, there's a wood wall, basically. These are operable doors designed with the building that connect directly to Frank Hall. So the main, one of the main challenges or requests from our client was to create an expansible space, something that could be opened up and increase the capacity. We're clearly not intending to add another building to this to create capacity. Obviously, it's an architectural gem. So we had to play with what we had, which is Frank Hall right in front of it. If you go to the next slide. So our response was to provide that continuity, utilizing the existing elements and visually, at least from an interior design point, create some simple elements and shapes that could connect us to that sanctuary. Just to create basically new spaces that continue to serve the community and the congregation for future generations. Next slide. Well, zooming back out, we introduced a symmetrical geometric shape that attempts to maintain the organic nature of the botanical shapes that are inside the synagogue. At the same time, we renovated the area with more modern materials, also keeping them simple and trying to not compete with anything that was inside or in place. Providing durability, by opening up these two spaces, we have a big challenge of acoustics at the same time. So all new ceilings and materials that were introduced have some sort of acoustic component to them to help with absorption. This strategy to incorporate these ceiling planes with creating different levels was also to bring in indirect lighting, trying to minimize the glare and the impact of it, paying tribute to the way lighting was brought into the main synagogue. And the incorporation of a central skylight or center element in this case was done with a large acoustical and at the same time lighting fixture. Next slide. The space itself can be closed off and separated from the synagogue, as mentioned before, and functions as a multi-purpose room at the same time. Not only its expansion, but also could be separate and be used for different types of events, pre-function, education. There was a big furniture design component to it to provide elements that could be easily movable. The two cabinets that you can see against the wood wall are basically on casters. Some of them have multimedia elements inside of them so that they can be rearranged and used for different activities. If you go to the next slide, you can see what we're talking about. So some of these sort of cabinets can move around the space, open up, offer an opportunity to divide the space or make a presentation or something like that. And some of them also have incorporated storage that serves as code storage for patrons visiting the building. Next slide. We brought in some of the wood elements that were in the space and created these sort of wood volumes that are just one of them are shown here. They conceal storage space behind them as well. So we're sort of trying to respond to all the needs that a space like this would require, with keeping it very subdued in comparison to the synagogue that is completely adjacent to it. Next slide. Here you can see how the incorporation of that gold sort of element was brought in as an accent to the interior and keeping everything else in complementary colors, very low contrast, I would say, just sort of keeping that yellow gold accent as the main element. Moving on to the next slide, we can see Crown Hall, which is the second part of the project. This is the rentable space, banquet hall, more of a larger formal event space that is the addition done in the 80s by Hammond, Beebe, and Babka. This building relates also completely aligned with the lake, so expansive views of it. Postmodern, it contains another sanctuary within it. Next slide. Here we can see how we use a different approach to a conventional ballroom, introducing that dramatic ceiling plane that was mentioned earlier, using circular and concave shapes to define the social hall, provide a fully flexible space. These series of cove lighting or drop ceilings that are in separate planes are also concealing all mechanical systems so that we avoid diffusers just sort of landing right on the bottom face of the lower ceiling. They're sort of concealed within the cove. And then there was also a strategy of the starscape lighting to create a more warm type of lighting scheme, adding more visual interest to the space. We also incorporated a series of wall sconces around the entire space, updates to the materiality itself, again, acoustic drywall, acoustic materials on the walls, and expansive wood flooring throughout. Next slide, please. To the right here, you can see the second sanctuary with the skylight. So we took that as inspiration, separated from it, and started dropping our ceilings, our geometry around that to respect the existing elements. Trying not to compete with the existing architecture, providing something functional and relevant for the community, and obviously much more brighter. And the next slide. Again, multi-purpose space, direct connection to the exterior. And we just wanted to thank everybody in the team. North Shore Congregation Israel as the owner, Valenti as the general contractor, IMEG as the mechanical, plumbing, fire protection, and civil engineer, GGLD as the lighting designer, and Henriksen for the furniture. Thanks, everybody.
The third award in the renovation category goes to San Francisco Zen Center Beginner's Mind Temple, San Francisco, California, by Studio Bondi Architecture. This project, originally designed in 1922 by Julia Morgan as a residence for young professional Jewish women, the building became the home of San Francisco Zen Center in 1969. Since then, it has served as a place for reflection and connection for a diverse population and residential living for Zen practitioners. Next slide. Mu is a core Zen Buddhist concept emphasizing emptiness as positive space filled with potential. The original building featured 3 large open rooms serving the daily needs of the residents. These empty spaces were adapted by the Zen Center to serve as a dining room, a zendo, which is a meditation hall, and a Buddhist hall where services and lectures are conducted. The project created a 4th empty space to serve as a welcome center with reception, community gathering room, and a Buddhist bookstore. This 1,350 square foot space was found by removing an array of small rooms and exposing the original reinforced concrete column grid. Next slide. According to the jury, this is a renovation that listened to and realized the client's dreams. The architects respected the historic character of Julia Morgan's classical building and, without changing the building footprint, found space for accessory upgrades and an expanded program, including the new Welcome Center. Overall, there is a quiet clarity to the renovated space, especially the Zendo Meditation Hall, which is entirely befitting of the client's spiritual mission. Unfortunately, Studio Bondi Architecture was not able to participate with us today in this event.
Thanks, Josh. So the final 2026 Renovation Award is for another one of these projects with a remarkable story behind it, not just remarkable design. Scotland AME Zion Church in Potomac, Maryland, designed by Antunovich Associates. And you're going to hear from Desmond in a second here more about that story. So Scotland AME Zion Church, Montgomery County, Maryland, has stood as a beacon of faith and resilience for over a century. Built in 1924 by formerly enslaved residents of the Scotland community, the modest single-room wood frame structure became a vital center for worship and cultural life. Decades later, a relocated road and resulting flooding threatened its survival. Despite such challenges, the church endured and thrived, expanding in 1968 at the cost of its original facade. The church was eventually recognized as a historic resource in 2002. But in 2019, severe flooding compromised the foundation, prompting a bold vision for renewal. Partnering with government, philanthropic, and religious organizations, the congregation launched the Second Century Project. The concept, quote, the Ark and the Jewel, combines urgent repair and historic rehabilitation of the pristine white church in the woods with a sensitive wraparound modern expansion, using natural and modern materials to honor heritage while embracing the future. Housing a new sanctuary, a multi-purpose space, a dining lobby, a meeting space, and a coffee bar, this transformation preserves sacred history, strengthens community ties, and ensures Scotland AME Zion Church remains a spiritual home for generations to come. In the jury's view, quote, despite constraints related to flooding, a long and narrow site, and a limited budget, the renovation of the historic church building and the addition constructed around it gives new life to this AME Zion congregation. As one of the jurors noted, rather than abandoning the site, the congregation dug into it, buttressing the church's legacy as yet another testimony of faith and survival. Desmond Monet-Grimble from Antunovich Associates is here to speak more about this project. Congrats, Desmond.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And I'd like to sincerely express the deepest gratitude I can to the jury for your recognition of how invested Antunovich Associates and our collaborating partners were with advancing this project. It has been impossible to distill the story of Scotland AME Church and its 100-year journey into a concise and comprehensible blurb. There is no elevator pitch for a century of history and challenges, and what I believe and what I truly hope will be a century of thriving beyond this latest intervention. I mentioned at the in-person awards in San Diego that I can't acknowledge sufficiently just how much fortitude the Scotland Church congregants and its board and the descendants of the originating Scotland community who are very much still present. They came into this process with an incredible clarity of vision and purpose that you don't often see in these kinds of projects with an urgent need. And I'd also like to acknowledge Glenstone and Montgomery County for their investment in the restorative justice aspects of this project, because it sincerely needed it. This pristine white church in the woods was very difficult to maintain. It was very difficult to maintain a sense of presence while also being able to address its expansion needs. The church very much, as modest as it is, they very much do have expansion needs. Being able to address those through the challenges of, the typical construction limitations, in addition to that, layering on top the challenges of development during the pandemic. You can't pat these guys on the back enough. They are a shining example of fortitude in all sincerity, and the gestures that we were able to make on their behalf underscore how committed they were in their effort. The image that you're seeing right here, our renovation of the existing church, you'd never know it to look at it, but we literally had to lift this building 5 feet in the air, repair and replace its foundations, and fill that bathtub of a property that they've been sitting in. And had I thought of it sooner, I could have been able to share with you guys a video of just how significant those flooding events were. Imagine torrents of water hitting your church 4, 5, 8 times a year for 60 years. You can't imagine how desperate and dire the situation was, and we were grateful that they entrusted us with really providing clarity and guidance on this intervention. And it's been my baby personally for about 6 years, as first a design architect, then a delivery architect, now representing the DC office of Antunovich Associates as the director of the DC office. I can't speak enough about this project, and it's sorely missed, but it's still our baby. It's still our child out in the world, and we're happy that it's getting the recognition that it has.
All right. For the category Religious Architecture Restoration, the First Church of Christ Scientists, Boston, Massachusetts, Feingold, Alexander Architects, and Simpson, Gumpertz, and Herger. The Mother Church anchors the 13.5-acre Christian Science Plaza, the largest privately owned, publicly accessible open space in Boston. The complex comprises 2 landmarked edifices, the Romanesque Revival Original Church, built in 1894, and the neoclassical domed extension, completed in 1906. Together, they reflect the rapid growth of the Christian Science movement and distinct architectural traditions. Over time, water infiltration, freeze-thaw damage, and aging building system comprise the historic stone terracotta and the interior finishes, while limited accessibility and code deficiencies challenged the public use. The restoration addressed systematic envelope failures and domes, roofs, balustrades, and facades, while upgrading electrical, life safety, and accessibility systems and conserving historic interiors. Next slide. The jury commented, "A restorationist dream. This multi-phase project was systematic and truly comprehensive top to bottom, inside and out. Few clients or budgets can support this kind of advanced and uncompromising level of architectural restoration. The resplendence of the Mother Church is back. The building is also more accessible, watertight, and safer than it ever was in the past." Christopher Lane and Reagan Shields Ives are here from Feingold Alexander Architects to speak about this project.
Great. Well, we wanted to thank Partners for Sacred Places and the Interfaith Knowledge Community for this recognition, and also a big thanks to our client, the First Church of Christ Scientists, for their support throughout the entire project, as well as the entire team of consultants, engineers, and contractors who were involved in the restoration, because we all shared a mutual understanding of the importance of the work that we were doing together in harmony for the future of this church. And then I do just want to recognize and congratulate our fellow award winners for all of your inspiring work. So this image just gives you a sense of where the church is located in the city of Boston. It's a very active part of the city. It traveled by many Boston residents, members of the church, and visitors. And this complex was landmarked by the Boston Landmark Commission in 2011. And then the next slide, you'll see what was described as these two structures that came together. The smaller building on the right is the TMCO, the original, that was built in 1894. And then the extension was built in 1906. And the fact that these two buildings were constructed in just 12 years of each other is really a direct reflection of the rapid growth of the Christian Science faith at that time. So because this is such a complicated project, in the next slide, you'll see this restoration took place over 8 years, 8 phases that addressed systematic building envelope issues at the main dome, at the semi-domes, the roofs, the balustrades, the facades, as well as all the interior restoration and some improvements to the congregation experience. So we just gave a graphic to kind of spell out how this work was done. And then in the next slide, we just wanted to give a kind of a higher level overview, simplified overview of the floor plans, just so you get a sense of the difference in scale of the two separate structures. The pink represents the Mother Church original, the yellow is the extension. And to touch briefly on the interior scope of work that resulted in the compromised, building envelope over many years. That also included modernization of the electrical life safety systems, accessibility upgrades. So the next series of slides, you'll see that we wanted to highlight some before, during, and after results of the project. So we're starting with the exterior scope of work that was completed along with our consulting partners for the project, Simpson, Gumpertz, and Hager, who addressed the building envelope repairs, including the replacement of the cupola at the top of the main dome, the semi-domes, the extensive stonework and the facade. And then the next slide, you can just sort of see how all that work comes together on the exterior. And Christopher is going to touch on some of the interior scope of work.
So next slide. So beginning here at the interior of the original edifice, the following slide shows the improvements and repairs to the building after the envelope. If you just go back one. So after the building was buttoned up and waterproof, we could really begin our efforts for the interior, where we turned to comprehensive upgrades of the mechanical, electrical systems, with a particular attention to restoring interior decorative finishes. The slide highlights transformation of the original edifice. Extensive trenching, patching, and plaster finish work was performed to integrate new electrical conduit and systems into the existing fabric. Repairing of existing plaster substrate resulting from water damage. In the upper left, you can see where we created custom templates to restore ornamental plaster relief, and paint conservation to repair finishes in place wherever possible and apply new ornamental paint throughout. Next slide. Here we can see the conserved and repaired historic decorative plaster and painting throughout the space, including detailed plaster relief and reproduction of the cherished Mary Eddy Baker quotes that are throughout the campus and building. Next slide. Here we can see the complete restoration of the TMCO, or the original edifice auditorium. This portion of the project focused on preserving the architectural integrity and visual character of this important gathering space. The finished auditorium demonstrates how restoration, preservation, and modernization can coexist without compromising the historic experience of the space. Next slide. So moving into the Mother Church extension, the second 1900s building, focusing on the new readers platform. In the slide, we can see the original platform in the upper left, which presented function challenges and accessibility limitations between the existing upper and lower platforms, and the congregation challenges and things that no longer met the contemporary requirements of the church relative to the platform and the readers. The project introduced a newly designed accessible readers platform that connected the previous separated platforms, supporting the users while fitting seamlessly into the historic architecture. The addition of the long sloped walkway at the front of the platform in lieu of a typical ramp addressed accessibility challenges while allowing for the omission of railings and guardrails to provide unobstructed sight lines and access to and from the platform. This is a strong example of improving inclusivity, accessibility, and usability while respecting the building's original historic character. Next slide. Significant repair and conservation efforts were undertaken to stabilize much of the damaged plaster from the walls to ceilings, mostly because of water leakage into the building from failing roofs. The before image on the upper right shows Reagan and I atop the extensive scaffolding required to access the auditorium ceilings and decorative plasterwork. The restoration team worked carefully to replicate historic details and maintain visual continuity across the entire ceiling and walls throughout the whole repair process. The completed work renews the architectural finishes while preserving the craftsmanship that defines the interior as a whole. Next slide. So jumping back out to the exterior to one of the many exterior entrances on the building, where we transformed one of those entrances into a fully accessible point of arrival. The construction photo at the upper right demonstrates the complexity involved in introducing accessibility upgrades within a historic context, respecting existing stonework and the Guastavino ceiling tile. By lowering the existing vestibule floor level and removing the center stairs, the finished entrance provides a more welcoming and equitable experience for visitors while integrating heating and cooling systems, all while blending with the historic architecture. This improvement reflects the project's broader commitment to enhancing usability and access while preserving the historic building. Next slide. The work at the First Church of Christ Scientist reflects the team commitment to preservation, adaptability, accessibility, and long-term stewardship. Through careful restoration, modernization, and conservation, these historic spaces have been prepared to serve future generations. We truly appreciate the opportunity to share this project in detail with you and are honored to have received this award. Thank you.
Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, Regan. Congratulations again. Everybody, we've made it. Our last award of the day for the category Sacred Landscape. It goes to the Marian Gardens at Christ Cathedral in Garden Grove, California. This is the former site of Robert Schuller's Crystal Cathedral. And the project is awarded to Domus Studio Architecture out of San Diego. A representative is not here from Domus today, so I'm going to abbreviate the description a little bit, but I want to give them a big shout out because they helped interfaith design with the in-person awards, and they also led, David Pfeiffer, one of their principals, led a fantastic tour day at AIA 2026 in San Diego of sacred places in that area. So Domus, thank you very much for all your help. I'm going to go right to the jury's view of this series of four gardens in this connected landscape. It presents a rich set of ideas rendered with aesthetic sensitivity and detail. The programming of the landscape is generous, providing several different kinds of contemplative spaces than one might use to connect with the life of Mary or with oneself. It was easy to imagine when using this landscape and how the materials, colors, form, and scale of the design complements Philip Johnson and Burgess' famous glass church for Robert Schuller. And in lieu of greater description, I'd encourage everyone to go to the Partners for Sacred Places website where all of these projects are documented and you can learn more.
Thank you, Kevin. So I just want to acknowledge that we are at time. I am going to read the questions. I know that some of you will have to go because you might have something else going on afterwards, but we will send out the recording that will have the questions, but I'll just get right into the questions. And there are about 5 of them, so I think we can do this in about 5 or 10 minutes. Regarding for Robbie, for the Chapel of St. Ignatius, I think there is a sculptor in the audience who is interested in hearing about how the church worked with the artist Bruno Walpoth, including how they arrived at the very moving image of Mary and conceived the interpretation of the young St. Ignatius.
Great, thank you for the question. We were very lucky on the client side to have, so there were 2 priests that were involved early on the client side, part of the leadership team, and one of them was an art history professor and an Ignatian priest. And if you ever have had the great pleasure to work with any Jesuits, they are just incredibly learned, and they really drove a process that allowed us to engage with that. So in terms of artist selection, early on when we were doing the liturgical guidance and engagement with the chapel community and the stakeholders, we led conversations with our liturgical consultant, Marquita Mock, that talked about the history of certain images and how we would potentially approach them. And through that engagement with our liturgical consultant and this art history professor, Jesuit priest, we went back, and the Jesuit priest actually came back and had found the work of Bruno, and we kind of collectively had a rare moment where the aesthetic alignment was 100% there, and we really encouraged them to engage with Bruno. And he happens to speak Italian, and so he entered into negotiations with Bruno where they were trading letters with Bruno. And through that process, Bruno started asking questions about what the approach may be to see if he would take on the commission, because he's very selective in his work. And there was just a lot of alignment between our process and what we wanted to see and what Bruno's process would be. So we really felt strongly that the images should be historically accurate and as realistic as possible. So we asked Bruno if he could work with live Semitic models for Mary. And he agreed, and actually found people in the community where his shop is that are of Semitic descent. So the model for Mary was from a live model. And the same was true for Jesus, working from a live model of Semitic descent. There's a lot here, so I'm trying to be very brief here. And then in terms of St. Ignatius, the same kind of conversation around realism and working with injured people. So Bruno's process is incredible, and he works with linden wood that he sources from where his studio is near the border of Switzerland and Italy. And his process of kind of whitewashing the linden wood and creating those kind of evocative figures, it kind of goes back to those themes of encounter, and even like the translucent glazed brickwork and the whitewash finishes. Everything was kind of about revealing, concealing, even down to the statuary approach. So there's a lot there, and hopefully I answered your question, but a lot of engagement with the artists and our team and our liturgical teams to arrive at those three statuary elements.
Thank you. And I'll just do one more question because we're over time. Shoji, I believe you are still here, although I know it's very late in Japan right now. There was a quick question about whether there was real stone or if it was concrete used. But if you're not able to answer that question, that's okay, and we can send out an answer.
As a juror, I can answer that because it was in their submission that those were all real stone slabs. It wasn't concrete. It was quite remarkable.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. If you have additional questions, we can try to answer them via email. I am going to send. Oh, I can't. Maddie, if you were able to, could you put the survey in the chat? Because I am not able to do that. If we can't put it in the chat, we will send it out via email. But thank you all for coming here. I'm going to hand this off to Josh and Kevin just to finish it up.
A couple of quick things here. Interfaith Design Knowledge Community, appreciates their engagement with Partners for Sacred Places. We do have an upcoming town hall on the architecture of religious growth in the United States. And for this talk, we're also looking to receive some input. So there's a form on the top QR code, and you can register on the bottom QR code. That's September 16th at 1 o'clock. And we can send that out to you as well. Go to the next slide. And then AIA Central New Jersey is doing a tour of Nassau Presbyterian Church, which the renovation was done by Mills Schnoring on September 28th. Nassau Presbyterian Church is really at the right at the center of Princeton University. It's a really great building. So maybe some of you might be able to join if you want to register. There's the QR code for that. And one more. And then November 3rd through the 6th is AIA Tri-States, which is New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. At the Tri-States Conference, there will be a number of interfaith tours and presentations, including a tour of the Baptist Hindu Temple in Robbinsville, which is the largest Hindu temple in the Americas, and worth checking it out. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Believe it or not, the 2027 Faith Inform Awards are already here. So I'm hoping to hear from some of you again, because I know you have wonderful projects. And please share news about this award program with other firms who you think are also doing remarkable projects. You can submit and learn more at faithinformawards.com. You can also connect with Partners for Sacred Places. You can email faithinform@sacredplaces.org. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn via these QR codes. All of the Faith Inform winners are featured in the summer issue of Sacred Places magazine. It's a beautiful print issue. Past issues are available to download as well on our website at sacredplaces.org. To get a current print issue by email, sign up for our newsletter on our website. Print copies are available to those who donate $50 or more per year. I want to thank you all again for your time, for your words and presentations and the images and your projects. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day. Be well. Have a great end to your summer. Thank you very much from Partners.